Wow, I just skydived off a Cyberman ship. Huh. Yar, matey.
Kill me! Hello YouTube, and welcome back to Evolution Reviews. So, as I said, this is more regular content, and believe it or not, I'm actually sticking to that this time. Usually when I say I'm going to post something more regularly, like the podcast, it gets sacked off within a couple of weeks. But I actually do want to keep this up because they are very quick to make, and it seems like you guys really enjoyed the last one. So, you've all seen the opening, so in this episode, yes, we are doing the 15th Doctor's Doctor Who fan film series. Now, because this is a series as opposed to just one short film, I'm trying to keep this episode a bit more concise. I've actually made some notes on things that I liked, things that I didn't like, rather than just watching the entire series through and picking up on every single tiny thing that I think is good and that I don't think is good. So yeah, I've made some notes, and I'm basically going to be going through what I liked and what I didn't like. So I'm going to start with what I liked because I want to start positive, and also I feel like once I get onto the stuff I don't like, I'm just going to start rambling. Also, as a final note before I actually start doing this is kind of like a part 1 to a 2-part review that I'm doing. So this is part 1 because this is the original 15th Doctor series. However, part 2 will be the extended cut of season 1 whenever it comes out. So yeah, you've got that to look forward to. So let's start with what I liked. However, before we kick things off, so the first thing that I really enjoy about this series is the acting. Not necessarily the dialogue, because I'll come on to that later, but just talking about the delivery of the lines and the performance that's being given by the cast is, for the most part, pretty good. In particular, the Doctor's performance. It's a very modern era Doctor performance. It's quite physical, and it's all very expressive, it's all very movement based, and I think that the actor does a good job conveying the tone of the dialogue through his facial expressions and through his movements. He's very animated as well, which just kind of makes the whole series feel quite fun, which sets it apart from other fan films, because most other fan films on YouTube opt for a very dark Doctor, whereas this one kind of goes for one that can bounce from A to Z in a second, and I really like that performance. When it comes to the other actors in the series though, it's interesting. It's clear that the guy playing the Doctor is clearly quite passionate about doing this, however everyone else in the series just is kind of saying the lines as if they were just reading them. There's no kind of emotion behind the words that they're saying, it is just words. But like I said, giving credit where credit is due, I think that the performance that is actually carrying the series is really good, which is kind of the point. And obviously the side characters, they're saying the lines, they're getting the dialogue out, which you need to do to further the plot, so I'm not going to harp on that too much. So yeah, acting is pretty good. So the next thing I thought was really good while I was watching is actually the music choice. Some fan film series will have the music be very prominent in their series, and it's always there and you can always hear it. It's very kind of bombastic and that kind of thing, and it really accompanies what's going on. Other fan film series, you can't hear it at all. So there's these kind of two polar opposites where either it takes over the scene or you can't hear it at all. Whereas I think that this series kind of finds a nice middle ground. It very rarely chooses the big kind of songs that you would associate with Doctor Who, and it usually opts for these sort of more ambient tracks that you obviously know it's a Doctor Who soundtrack, but they're not the immediate Doctor Who songs that come to mind. And they do a pretty good job at just accompanying what's going on within the scene while not taking over and drowning out the dialogue. So that's really good. So I'm going to come on to the story later, and that means you can probably guess where it falls in terms of things I like and things I didn't. However, I did want to mention in the things I like part that this series has some really good ideas. Emphasis on ideas. So for example, I believe episode 4 is called Planet War, and in the episode the premise is that the Doctor is on Gallifrey, the TARDIS is broken, there's no sonic screwdriver, and he's just living in a house with basically no resources, and the idea is that now that Gallifrey is back, but the Time War has kind of kicked off again, and the Daleks and the Time Lords are fighting, and the Doctor needs to find a way to destroy Skaro. It's a pretty interesting premise, actually, and could have made for a really good episode, but I'll come on to its execution a bit late. Another episode has a really interesting premise where there's this guy whose parents were killed, I believe, and he's kind of become like this alien bounty hunter. Again, really cool idea. I kind of wish that it had been more tied to the Time Lords. So potentially his parents died during either the war that was in the episode I just mentioned with the Daleks and the Time Lords fighting again and Skaro getting destroyed. Or just in general, if it had been in some way tied to the Time Lords, because then it would make sense that he's going after the Doctor. But it kind of just is, my parents were killed by aliens, so I'm just going to kill any aliens. It's kind of a loose character motivation, but I still think that actually its core concept is really interesting. It just kind of needed to be taken a little bit further. So another interesting idea that the series has is there's an episode where the current Doctor that we are with for the episode meets a future incarnation, and we discover that the future incarnations of the Doctor don't like the 15th. Really cool idea. We still don't know why. I don't think we found out at this point, but it is certainly hinted to that later on in this Doctor's run, he will do something that later incarnations will look back on as a terrible thing and therefore hate this incarnation of the Doctor. Given the fact that it looks like this series isn't going any further, and now the channel is just going back, doing the season 1 extended cut, and then I assume that's it, I'm kind of disappointed that we're never going to find out what this Doctor actually did to make future incarnations not like them. But as the core concept goes, it's pretty interesting, and I kind of wish that it was formed as the basis for this series. And finally, like I said, I've already mentioned the performance that's being given and the idea of a bad Doctor, but in general, the Doctor themselves in this series is actually really good. So we kind of have this Doctor who's very sporadic and just sort of behaves in these crazy ways, so it can go from being really funny to a bit darker, and just sort of, it just seems to be bouncing around all the time, and I don't know what's going on in their head, but I'm interested to find out. It's a really unique performance of the Doctor, or a really unique kind of character interpretation for this Doctor. And yeah, it's refreshing after seeing most other fan films go down the route of a darker incarnation of the Doctor. I really like that this incarnation's got a fun side while also clearly having a dark aspect to them as well. It's really good. So that's the good stuff. Now, let's talk about the bad stuff. But real quick. That's good stuff. So yeah, the first negative of the series is the shot choices. So, sometimes, very rarely, I will grant, I actually think it's shot pretty nicely. However, for the most part, it chooses the most weird shots to use. So when we're in the TARDIS, it's shot like from a low angle looking up, and then the TARDIS console is just slapped on top, and it looks bizarre. And then sometimes it's handheld, so it looks like the Doctor's vlogging, and then other times it'll be outside and the camera will just be in the grass and all we can see is the Doctor's feet. It's weird and really actively detracts from the story because we can't actually see what's happening, or if we can, it's a bizarre shot choice. And I don't know if this is the case for anyone else, but I found myself just confused and therefore distracted. So I wasn't focusing on the story because I couldn't understand why it was being shot from this angle. Another thing, episode 2 is just shy of 20 minutes long, and the bulk of it is shot from one camera angle. No variation. I assume they just set up the camera and then said all their lines and didn't move the camera at all. And that's just not interesting to watch. You have to keep your shot choices varied so that you're cutting between different angles and showing just the conversation from different angles. I get if you're in the same location for about 15 minutes of the episode, it can be difficult, but you have to keep cutting between the different characters as they say their lines, or doing wider shots or close-ups, or from different angles and perspectives, but they didn't. It's just plonked in one position, point and shoot for about 15 minutes of their dialogue, and it's the most boring episode in the series. So yeah, please, in future, just make your shots just more varied, just have more of them to cut between. Next complaint, the audio. Now, I said in my review of The Break-In that I was going to do my best not to kind of really get fixated on the technical things that really these films couldn't do anything about. However, I did say that if I felt they actively detracted from what was happening in the story, then I was going to mention it. And in this case, that is 100% what is going on. Some shots, like the ones where he's vlogging and the camera's right in front of him, it's fine because it's picking up his dialogue perfectly. However, in that same episode I just mentioned, where there's about 15 minutes all shot from the same perspective, the camera is pretty far away from them, so you can't hear what they're saying either. So it's 15 minutes of dialogue shot from the same perspective that you can only hear about 20% of. I know I'm probably getting a bit too into this and probably a bit more angry than I should be, but you might have had an interesting story here. It's a 2-part episode, for Christ's sake. Episodes 1 and 2 are linked. And I don't know what's happening. You might have had a really interesting story, but I can't tell because I'm bored watching it because it's all been shot from the same angle and I can't hear what the characters are saying. Sorry, I got really into that then. I genuinely... Just remember all the positives that I said earlier. That'll make all this negative part much easier. I'm sorry. So, the next thing. Listen, I am a visual effect person. Visual effects is what I do, and so when the effects aren't good, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be critical. I did it with Bad Wolf Movies last week with the incident with the blood. I'm gonna do it this time. Most of the time, it is effects that are free to use from the internet. So TARDIS green screens, logos, Daleks, whatever it might be, that are free to use. And that's fair enough. There's no shame in that. We've all started there, but please just shoot what your effect shots. So the shots that you're later going to have effects for, just shoot them better so the effects are easier to add in later. All of the TARDIS stuff is shot from a low angle looking up. So then when you add in the TARDIS, it looks bizarre. Why not shoot it from a neutral angle so that when you add in the TARDIS, it at least looks like it fits within the scene? Or just shoot the TARDIS stuff in a room that looks like it could be a TARDIS. It looks like your bedroom with the Capaldi TARDIS just plastered onto the frame. It looks bizarre. And then the title sequence is just a combination of free-to-use background vortexes with TARDISes and that kind of thing, which again, no shame in, we've all been there. But the theme tune is just the Eccleston 2005 one, really high pitch, and then all of the stuff that happens within the title sequence you would usually time with the music, right? That's common sense, right? No, this series doesn't do that. So we have the TARDIS stuff going on as normal, right? And then it outstays its welcome, so by the time the names are on, it's then out of sync with what's going on with the music, and then the Doctor Who logo appears at a random point, and then it will stop, and then it will just cut to this asteroid field at the end, and then the name of the episode will come up, but it's off to the side, so you can't see the first half of the episode name. This isn't even stuff that I'm like, oh well, it's not really stuff you could fix. You could easily fix it by just putting the text in the middle of the frame. I'm sorry, I did get really into that one, but it's just because visual effects is kind of my thing, so I really got into it. But I'm sorry, every time I watch the title sequence and there's just stuff that isn't fitting correctly together, even the asteroid field, there's green outlines around the asteroids. Just please fix it in the extended cut, I beg of you. I said it in the pros, I said I was going to come onto the stories. Do they make any sense? So episode 1 is the Doctor regenerates, crash lands, gets pushed into a rift in time and space, and then ends up on a water planet, even though I can clearly see that you were in the same location you were in before. Cool. And then you meet this other lady who claims that she watches the universe, and then she just creates this little room for you so you can get your new costume and your new sonic screwdriver. If she can do that, why can't she just leave this planet that she's on through the rift that you came in? She's got these magical powers. What's she doing still here? Doesn't make any sense. And then by the end of the episode, the Doctor's got his sonic screwdriver back, and then he does the incredible fan film resolution to the story where he just uses the sonic screwdriver on the problem, and then it's resolved. Brilliant. That's episode 1 out of the way. Episode 2, which is the one that's just under 20 minutes long, is... I don't know what's happening. So they get out of the planet, and they're out of the rift, and then they're just on this planet. And then I think that the magical powers lady, she's like, oh, my powers don't work on this planet, so if we don't get off, I'm going to die soon. And then I can't really remember what happens. But anyway, they leave. Episode 3 is mental, right? So the Doctor's in the TARDIS, and then he's bored, so he goes, I'm going to go and stop the Weeping Angels, because I haven't seen them for a while. That's not how Doctor Who works. How Doctor Who works, if you wanted to do a story like that, you could go, oh, I haven't been to this place for a while, or I feel like going here, or I'm bored, let's go to a random location, and then by chance you bump into the Weeping Angels. The Doctor never goes, I haven't stopped this enemy for a while, let's track them down so I can literally just go and defeat them. That's insanity. Then the Doctor arrives there, it's actually the Cybermen. The Cybermen make him go into VR. He comes out of VR, the Doctor then agrees to merge with the Cybermen, so the Cybermen give him a haircut and a change of clothes. The Doctor then actually just blows up the Cyberman ship, which is then when we get this moment.
Wow, I just skydived off a Cyberman ship. Huh. Yar, matey.
And then we cut back to the Cybermen and the Weeping Angels have actually merged. Of all the Doctor Who enemies to merge, why did you choose the Cybermen and the Weeping Angels? They are the worst pair to merge. If you'd have done Daleks and the Cybermen, that would have been awesome. Or just any of them that was similar. But the Cybermen and the Weeping Angels could not be more polar opposites. So why are you pairing them together? But anyway, that's that episode. I believe he stops them by talking to them about jelly babies for about 3 minutes. Then on to episode 4, which is Planet War, which I actually gave praise in the good part. So now let's talk about what's wrong with it. So the Doctor wakes up, does a vlog, then he's hungry. We spend about a minute dealing with the fact that the Doctor's hungry and he hates Oreos. So then he has his food and then he steps out into his garden and there's a Dalek there and he's like, oh wow, this is a problem. And then he just sort of finds this button to destroy Skaro. And so he sonics it because he doesn't want to press it. And then allegedly Skaro blows up and then he sonics this one lone Dalek and it just makes it spin. That's that episode sorted. Brilliant. I really got the impression that there was a war going on. Then the next episode is the one when we meet the future Doctor and these ghosts from however many episodes ago turn up. I don't know what happens in this one. They just sort of stand around talking. We find out that this Doctor, the other Doctors don't like. Then they go to their TARDIS and chat. Then they come back out. I assume there's a story here. Then we get the next episode, which is the one where we meet this alien bounty hunter guy. What happens? So the Doctor is captured by this guy. We never see how this happened. We just open with him captured. Great. Skipped over quite a lot there. And then, again, I don't really remember what happens. That's the thing. If I actually cannot remember what has happened in your episode, then it wasn't an interesting enough story, because I can remember what happened in the one with the VR and the Cybermen and stuff, even if it wasn't good, I remember it because it was interesting and it stuck out. Whereas this one with the bounty hunter, I switched off once we stopped doing the bounty hunter stuff because he was like, oh wow, I've been captured, and then we cut back and he's just sort of wandering around trying to figure stuff out. I thought we were going to do a story where this bounty hunter had captured him and then he had to like figure out how to get out of this, and then he was going to help him or something, like become a better person. But no, he just kind of comes along and travels with him. And then the final episode in the series, oh my god. So it's half the episode before the title sequence even happens, by the way. So I'm not entirely clear what's going on. So they land in this random place, it's snowed, the Doctor eats some snow and then spits it out, and then he's like, oh, this isn't real snow. And then he gets captured by what is the Daleks and Davros title sequence halfway through, and then apparently the Daleks and Davros are making a documentary about the Doctor. What are you talking about? And then there's this weird looking figure of a Dalek in the corner with a camera just stitched to him, and then Davros is kind of just talking. I assume they've got an evil plan. It must be what they're doing. They can't be just investing in the media industry because that's mental. And I don't really understand what happens or the ending or anything. With the other episodes, I could actually sit and watch them because even if I didn't understand what was happening in the story, I assumed that there would be answers to it later. Whereas in the later ones, it just expects you to stick around, even if there's no reason for you to want to keep watching. Why? So yeah, I got incredibly passionate when it came to the later points. But again, I'm doing this part of the review primarily because I want to get my thoughts on the original series out. I want to say what I thought was good and what was bad before the extended cut comes out, so that when I do my review of the extended cut, there's a kind of a what I thought about the original compared to the recut. Did it improve on the issues I had? Did it keep what was good? So that's what this is. This is, I assume that when you come back and watch this, when the part 2 is out of the extended cut, this will make a lot of sense as to why. This will make a lot more sense as to why I was so harsh. Because all of this stuff that I talked about that was bad was stuff I really want to be improved when we get to the extended cut. So yeah, I'm sorry if I was a bit harsh on this one. I did have a lot of issues with the series, but there's also a lot that I really liked here. And please don't forget about that. Don't come away from this thinking that I hated the series or anything like that. It's got a lot to like, but there's also a lot of issues with it. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review, and keep an eye out for my review of the Season 1 extended cut when it comes out. I'm also going to be reviewing Bad Wolf Movies' first episode of his Doctor Who fan film series, and just anything else I feel like reviewing. So, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.